Hot property on the big show.
Getting onto the property ladder can be quite stressful. No, I'm always looking at my friends who are going through that. It's not a struggle per se, because there's a lot of benefits that come from getting onto the property ladder. You understand why you did it once you're there, but before you do that, it can be a little bit tricky. Now we've got Kura yet again this week, and we're going to be talking about why we like property as an investment, and more especially why it is valuable and expensive. Kura and Depisha.
Hey, Amard! Good to be joining you yet again. I always look forward to this section of the week. I am so in love the way that you've described it as a property ladder. You know, a property ladder implies you start at the bottom, you go one rung up, you go two rungs up, right at the top. So if you start with the view urutanga at the bottom and you're going to do things small and they get bigger and better, then we're on the same side. And I'm grateful that you've framed it that perspective. So owning property, we'd love to do it, but we have to have a reason for it. Yes, there's a lot of emotion around it, but I hope that we're all rational economic human beings and we pick property because of very key fundamentals about what it is. Yes, there are other investments. Yes, there are shares. Yes, you can say a car in Zimbabwe is an investment, but a car, maybe not. But there are other investments. Why do we look at property?
Look, I really believe by now, if we're saying that buying a car is an investment, this is definitely not the show for you, because we all know that cars depreciate with time. So looking at property is something that's more tangible, that you can actually give to your future generations. I mean, if you're driving your parents' cars. It's okay, I'll wait. But like I said, we're looking at why it's valuable and why it's expensive. Because it's expensive, Kura. It's really, really expensive. And we understand how valuable it is at the same time. So what are some of the reasons why we love property, but it's zvaluable and it's expensive?
Hey, God bless our parents for making those investments. And if you're blessed enough to have them still around and helping you out, right. Why is property so valuable and expensive? Well, it goes to the kind of thinking that's around assets. So the more scarce an asset is and the longer it lives for, the more likely you are to be able to receive a higher price for it. So number one, the thing we love about property is that it is permanent. Now, permanent is as long as you and I want it to be. So it can be for my life, it can be for your life. It can be for however long we decide until we sell it or pass it on to our kids and they can pass it on to their kids. So it is something that lives and exists for a very long time. You can have, in theory, permanent succession where I leave it to the next generation and they leave it to the next generation. That thing endures. Yes, there'll be maintenance costs with it. Yes, there'll be upgrades that go with it, but it is something that is recorded in the deeds office that we all know that chini chindecha ningi, and it is a permanent asset that can be measured, valued, traded, borrowed against, and held in as close to perpetuity as you'd like to get.
Hence why we have the saying, as safe as houses, because that permanence of it makes it that bit safer for you financially, as well as just that confidence that you can have, I have a roof over my head. But also there's the aspect of it being irreplaceable.
Yeah, Amard, irreplaceability. So there's certain goods that have very few substitutes, that you can't really easily replace them or put something else in them. In real estate, at some point, you can either rent it or own it. But at some point, you have to go home. And if you're engaged in some sort of economic activity, that business needs to operate out of some fixed premises. Yes, you can say you can be a vendor on the side of the road, but eventually, at some point, whoever's supplying you the goods and services, if it's a warehouse, if it's a factory, they have used real estate to produce it. So real estate has this irreplaceability. You cannot do without it. And because you can't do without it, the prices for you to access it, enter it, use it, make use of it remains high. So real estate is irreplaceable, and that's another quality that we always want to have in our investments.
You can be renting or you can be owning. If you're renting here on The Big Show, we always like to tell you exactly how you can rent properly to make sure that you're able to have your savings and live the kind of life that you want to live that is sustainable. Sustainability is the most important thing. And of course, if you're owning, which is what we're all going to be pushing for, you can be owning high density, low density, medium density, a farm, a plot, anything at all, because that gives you that legacy. Now, if you want to be knowing more about how you can rent well, you can always just catch some of our podcasts, which are on our social media platforms. That is at Amard ZW on YouTube or Facebook, or at Kura on Facebook or YouTube. We will be continuing with Hot Property in a little bit.
Hot Property on The Big Show.
Uzi man, I'm the goat, I'm the goat, I'm the Quatimina, I'm the goat, I'm the goat, yeah, mama, I'm the goat, I'm the goat, Imbuzi Mawayo, everybody watch out, man.
Z. Hot Property on The Big Show.
Why do we love property so much, especially as an investment? Why is it valuable and expensive? We're looking at some of those reasons with Kura today. We've looked already at the fact that it's permanent. That's why it's valuable and expensive, because you can't destroy it, you can't break it, you cannot steal it legally, putting it out there. And also the fact that it is irreplaceable. You cannot not use it as a home or some other real estate. Now I want to go into the next bit where it says it gives you two types of return.
So an investment is to give you some value in the future. Right now, you're giving up money in your pocket. You could have gone on a holiday to Dubai. You could have bought that fancy new car, but you're putting it in real estate. So how do you get a return? If you look at an asset like gold, so you can buy gold, that's also an investment. You'd have put your money into it and you'd have bought 1 kg worth $10,000. I'm not sure of gold prices. I'm sure the Makoro Koza will be able to tell us. But once you've bought gold, the only return that you're going to see from that gold is the appreciation of the price. It doesn't pay you a dividend. It doesn't give you any income. Nobody gives you rent for it. So all you're going to see is a return based on the appreciation of the value. Now, with real estate, this is where you get two returns. One, hopefully and typically, and if you've bought right, your property is going to be worth more into the future. So you get first type of return called capital appreciation. It's worth more over time. And then the second type of return that you get is a cash flow return, where you are able to put that property into the market and get a tenant who we hope and pray on a monthly basis is working very, very hard to pay you by the 30th of the month. I can tell you, there's nothing as pleasant as receiving rental money. You know the struggle you've been through to pay your rent, and for you to know that somebody is out there working hard to be able to pay you rent as a landlord, it's an absolutely wonderful feeling. So your two returns, capital appreciation and rental.
You know what? Anyone who's paying rentals right now can understand. I wish I was getting the money that I'm paying out in rentals, because rentals are just going up, especially with the fluctuating rate. We know that there's bank rate, but we know what the rural rate is actually doing. Mumbled that one, of course. So that's one. Those are some of the things that you can also be looking at. Two types of return. Now there's another one that you can actually borrow against the property.
You see. Now, I will never knock anybody who's renting a property, because that's where we all start and that's what we've all got to do. But over time, when you can get to it, buy a property so that money is not going to somebody else's pocket, it's going to your investment in your asset. But that's something we'll talk about on another show, Amard. But yes, real estate, because of its permanence, because of its duration, it has the ability to attract finance. Now, when we're attracting finance, we've got to be smart about it. There are property transactions, I've done them myself, where the type of finance wasn't appropriate for the actual investment. So a great property can go wrong if you don't have the appropriate finance. But we're talking generalities here. In general, real estate is one of those assets that allows you to borrow money from a bank, so you can borrow a significant proportion of its purchase price from a bank as and when mortgages are available. Our mortgage numbers in Zimbabwe are small. I wish they were so much bigger. When I last had a look at the numbers, I think there are about 16,000 active mortgages in Zimbabwe. You know how the Zim dollar has gone, so a lot of people who've had mortgages have had inflation really much take care of that. But because property is permanent, you get a long time to pay. Because it's a long time to pay, the interest rate and your monthly repayment can be lower. If you borrow money to buy a car, that's typically going to be on 5 years. If you borrow money to buy a cell phone, I don't even think you get 2 years or 1 year. But when you're buying property, you'll get up to 15, 20 years to be able to repay that. When you're borrowing, make sure that it is adding value to you. What does that mean? It means that you're not paying too much in interest as opposed to the appreciation on the value of the property.
So you see, those are the benefits of actually owning property, and that's why we love property so much right here on Hot Property. Look, if you have any questions, you can always send them through to 0731168045, and of course you can also just go onto our social media platforms. That is at AmardZW on Facebook as well as YouTube, where you can also find all of the programs in case you missed any. And of course you can follow Kura at PropEye on Instagram or at Kura Chiwota on Facebook and Twitter.
Hot Property on the Big Show. Hot Property on the Big Show.
Getting onto the property ladder is not an easy thing. It's very taxing emotionally, but also very much financially. At one stage, we are going to be looking at ways that you can save up in order for you to get onto the property ladder. But we're still continuing to look at why we love property as an investment and why it's so valuable and so expensive. And we talked about saving to buy the property, but having the property as well is a way of saving.
Right. So aligned to the fact that a house is an essential commodity. Either you're going to rent it or own it, so you're paying a mortgage or you're paying off maridza wakashandisa uchivaka imba. What you're doing is creating a saving. So you're unlikely to have a rental payment and a mortgage payment and or a building commitment. You're going to have one of those three. So what Zimbabweans are doing, and God bless them, they save up and they buy a stand, and then once they've bought the stand, they save up, they buy some bricks. Once they've bought the bricks, then they build a cottage at the back of the stand, and then over time they build the dream house in the front. So what that does is, once you've got the stand and that cottage, you are now able to move out of perhaps rented accommodation and focus all of your effort and your savings into the property that you're using. So property is a store of value. You hear that in this day and age with the Artigo doing what it does. A store of value means mari yako haisikunyura, haisikupera value. So when you're putting money into a property, what you're doing is foregoing a current expenditure and putting it in something that is going to give you a future economic benefit. So once you've bought the property, you said bye-bye to Mr. Landlord, you said bye-bye to those amounts a month which add up to amounts a year or over years that have gone, and there's no benefit to you other than having a place to lay your head. When you own the property, you are putting money into a fixed building, a fixed asset, a fixed structure that is yours for you to enjoy and pass on to your kids or your great-grandkids, or do whatever in the in the wonderful home that you, if you want to do a monster mansion, you're welcome to do that, but it's yours to enjoy.
You know, Kura, like seriously, I feel like we need to get more mortgage lenders to come onto the show to tell us exactly how can we be saving to get onto that property ladder, because it's very important. Like, but the rent, guys, like, you know, when we were growing up, by the time our parents were our age, they were on their second or third property. One room. Very few of us are actually able to buy properties, and it hurts. It really hurts. But we're still continuing with why we actually like property as an investment, also explaining why it's valuable and expensive. We spoke about it being permanent, irreplaceable, two types of returns that you get from it being owning it, also just getting that cash flow, as well as you being able to borrow against it and it being a great saving vehicle. Now, the most important thing here is that it is scarce. Super
My dear,
scarce.
Indeed,
what do we mean by that?
Paying rent is expensive and it's painful and it's no fun. But you know what? Just as you were paid school fees for, both locally and internationally, you know, it comes our time. It's the circle of life. And hopefully through property education and an appetite, we're going to get to the other side and people will be able to invest. So let's talk about scarcity. Scarcity is a general absence of a thing. So what are the valuable commodities that are out there? The valuable commodities are local chiadzwa ngoda diamond, or you can go on the continent Tanzanite. Tanzanite is more rare than diamonds because it's only found in one place, so its value is high. With real estate, once you have an address, be it 3129 Budiriro Crescent, there is nobody else who can have that address. There's nobody else who can access that property. So you have taken that property. It is yours for you and yours to enjoy and benefit out of. And that is a scarcity factor. When you look at upmarket real estate, that scarcity factor is significant. In Harare, if you look at Orange Grove Drive, just the name Orange Grove Drive, I live on Orange Grove Drive. You know how it goes. Madale Dales. Madale Dales are fixed and finite. They have a certain number of properties. Those properties have certain characteristics, and it is scarce. You can build exactly the same house, not in the Dales, and it's not going to have the same price because it is scarce to be within a particular location.
Location. But no matter what location, right? Like we said at the beginning, no matter what location, as long as you have that land in your name, you're leaps and bounds, like you're far, like in a galaxy far away. Yes, I have been watching a lot of Big Bang Theory. So today we looked at why do we like property as an investment, why it's valuable and expensive. One, it's permanent. You can't destroy, break, or steal it. It's irreplaceable. You cannot not use a house. You cannot not use a property, a retail property, all of that. It gives you two types of return, whether you're owning it or whether you're going to be renting it out. Either way, you will be getting a return on there. And of course, you can extensively borrow to finance it, whether you want to extend it or whether you want to, buy another property, become a property mogul. And it's also a saving vehicle because owning versus renting lets you build up on an asset, and it is very scarce, like Kura said just now. If you do have any questions, you can always hit us up after all of this. You can hit Kura up at PropEye on Instagram, as well as at Kura Chihota on Facebook and Twitter. Kura, any last words? I swear to you, each time we have this, I learn something and a light bulb just goes off like ding.
Well done, Amard. Well done for answering all the questions. Yay! Man, I love doing this show with you because you just got such enthusiasm and it always comes through in your voice, and I absolutely love property. My purpose really is to put as much property to as many people's hands and just see the transformational element in people's lives. So how do I wrap this off? Property is a desirable asset. It lasts over time. It allows you to build up wealth over time. It is something that you use. It's practical. It's safe when it's done in the correct way. We've spent a lot of time talking about who to buy and how to check that amount, so we can stick on that. But property is the gift that keeps on giving. When it's done right, it gives you a personal balance sheet. It gives your family security of tenure. It looks after your pocket in the short term and the long term. And in these times where the value of our currency can move quite rapidly, property is a serious, solid bet. So our job, you and me, Amard, yes, agreed, you and me, we have to get property into the hands of the people. Property to people. Property kunabantu. Amen.
Kura, iwe nini? Tinebasa.
Hot Property on the Big Show.